Hello. If you're a pet owner, then you already know that the most dangerous thing you can field in a tabletop game is a cat. You just can't be sure if it will destroy their side or yours. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today we're looking at the history of cats and cat-like monster things from across all of Games Workshop's games. Over the history of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000, there have been a fair few flavours of cat. Regular, giant, alien, ghost, and every combination thereof. I thought it would be fun to take a look at some of the most interesting examples of our furry feline friends that I could find. This is my first YouTube video, so please bear with me as I get used to things around here, and leave a comment to let me know what you like and don't. Let's start with a pretty tame example. In 1984's second Citadel compendium, there was a small collection of thieves and robbers that included all kinds of cuts. Cut purse, cut throat, and close enough, cat burglar. Sadly, this is a pretty regular cat burglar, and I'm sure that you'll all want to see the real deal, so let's move quickly on to 1985's Chaos Beastmen range. Games Workshop and Citadel Miniatures were still trying to organise their thoughts about what a Beastman actually was. So this collection featured some wild and wonderful lads like the Hogman, Slime Arm, and the Kiss of Death. Really, every one of these miniatures is glorious, but we're interested in sculptor Trish Morrison's Tiger Man. The Tiger Man is actually remarkably noble and just so fun. I'm really sorry that we don't see as many of these kinds of beastmen anymore. Okay, you asked for cats and I'm giving you burglars and beastmen. There has to be an example of a regular cat somewhere in Games Workshop history, right? Right. And where better to find a creature that will claw at your head just because it wants your attention in the middle of the night than the Night Horrors. Citadel released a range of creepy monsters, ghouls and ghosties in 1986 called Night Horrors. And included amongst them was a witch with her cat familiar. This is the first and possibly only straight-up regular cat miniature that I have seen from Games Workshop. Not giant, not ghost, and not a part cat, part something else hybrid, just a lovely little magical familiar. Sculpted by Jess Goodwin in 1987, Citadel released a range of elven animal keepers and their animals, featuring Lupus the Wolf Keeper, Scroffer the Boar Keeper, Ursus the Bear Keeper, and Paulu the Wildcat Keeper. Paulu came with 3 wildcats, but there was just 1 cat sculpt. In Warhammer Armies, released a year later for 3rd edition Fantasy Battle, the animal keepers would get a rebrand. Now, they were Beastmasters. They still came with a range of beast options, including the wildcats, and you could take up to 6 this time. GW writer Graham Davis has long been the keeper of cats in Warhammer lore, and was responsible for some of the earliest examples and most interesting appearances of cats in the Warhammer world. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay would include a bestiary entry for the Wildcat, drawing on that Elven animal keeper's range. And in those early WFRP days, Davis wrote the first White Dwarf article for the game. In 1988's White Dwarf 85, a couple of travel encounters were included in an article called On the Road. In one, the players would encounter a stranger claiming to be a hunter. The stranger, going by the name Neferata, Davis said he was inspired by all of the Deep Purple he was listening to at the time, was on her way to free her imprisoned lover. But she's nervous because he is a werecat who can't control his powers, and the full moon is rapidly approaching. It was up to the GM and the players how things would then play out, but there was an extra twist in the tale. Neferata herself was a werecat as well. The on-the-road encounters would go on to be collected in the Enemy in Shadows companion. As far as Davis knows, this was the only appearance of werecats in Warhammer history, which seems like a shame to me. It's a cool idea. Though there was a Citadel D&D miniature produced for the Were-Tiger, part of White Dwarf's Fiend Folio range, sometime between 1979 and 1983. In 5th edition Warhammer Armies book Vampire Counts, we get the history of ancient vampire, daughter of the moon, founder of the Lamian Sisterhood, and self-proclaimed Queen of Mysteries, Neferata. Hailing from the land of Nehekhara, Neferata spent thousands of years commanding vampiric powers and undead minions in the Warhammer world that was, and unsurprisingly, she inspired a great deal of folk stories from across those lands. One such story goes that a merchant on his way to the city of Tylea came across a cat on his path. He gave it some food and some water and took it in, putting it in his cart and continuing on his journey. Just before he arrived at his destination, he looked into the back of the cart, and instead of seeing the cat, he discovered that a strikingly beautiful woman was sat there instead. He was as wise as he was kind, so the merchant said nothing and just continued into the city, where the woman got out of the cart, paid him for the journey, and disappeared into the throng. That woman, of course, was Neferata. Cats and Neferata have always been linked. In her homeland, there was a goddess of cats, grace and love, called Bast, and Neferata herself is said to have bred cats of superior beauty and affection, some even possessed of supernatural abilities. The undead shadow of one such cat, Bastet, was included with the Neferata miniature released in the year 2000, sculpted by either Ali Morrison, Trish Morrison or Colin Grayson. The GW catalogue was not clear. Bastet was Neferata's loyal cat that was entombed with its master before sharing in her unlife. In-game, Bastet could be sent to stay close to an enemy unit, which would then be cursed with terrible luck. And that was the end of history, for the old world and all of its cats at least. But what of the world to come? For a time, one of my favourite bits of Games Workshop lore was the Hammerhal Herald, published on Warhammer Community, that provided a little snapshot of all of the ads and newspaper clippings that you might see from across the mortal realms. In there, you would have found evidence that my favourite felines live on in the mortal realms. No less than the great mystic Mog makes an appearance, as well as this friendly looking feline that's gone missing. Of course, this missing cat is a Mind Stealer Gyrinx, a monstrous addition to the Warhammer Cats family that was released for Warcry and Slaves to Darkness armies in early 2020. Originally an order of Hessian magical servants to Teclis, the Gyrinx became corrupted by the Changer of Ways. Their leader, the High Bibliarch, struck a bargain with Tzeentch, and they were granted a third eye. But they were also cursed with an insatiable desire to absorb knowledge from others. Eventually, they all went mad as a result. Great deal. When Warhammer Quest descended onto the streets of the damned city of Ulfenkarn in Cursed City, there was one particular creature that deserved a little more love and scritches than the rest. It's a zombie cat. You just need to be careful where you scritch it because some bits can fall off. So cats existed in the world that was, and they exist in the mortal realms that are. But what about 40,000 years into the future? The noblest of future cats is the Gyrinx. A quick note on pronunciation. I really thought that this would be something like Gyrinx or Grinx, but according to GW author Gav Thorpe, it's Gyrinx. So there you go, official confirmation. Mostly cat-like in appearance, though growing to be as much as a metre in length, the Gyrinx is a highly psychic creature that is a prized companion of Eldari, Inquisitors, rogue traders, and anyone else who wants cuddles or otherwise admires exotic fauna. In fact, the original Gyrinx miniature released in 1989 came alongside two other examples of 40k wildlife, the Jokero, who we would see again in 2012, and the Death Ferret, who sadly has yet to get a codex of its own. The Gyrinx was mentioned in a few bits of lore and history, but largely faded from view after that initial miniature release, until in 2017 the Triumvirate of Iniad emerged, in the advancing storyline about the fracture of Eldar craftword Baeltan. One member of the Triumvirate, Ivrain, a powerful psyker, is often accompanied by her Gyrinx, Aliornix. This is a wonderful update to the original Gyrinx miniature, and it is great to see them back in the game, though it's very hard to pronounce all of those words in a row. Black market traders on the hive world of Necromunda even deal in these exceptionally rare creatures, with only the most successful gang leaders and spire nobles able to acquire such an exotic pet like a Gyrinx. But they're not the only unusual cats to be found in the benighted hives of that blasted world. In the luminous, dangerous, chemically devious camps of the House of Escher, the class of warriors known as Wild Runners have become expert beastmasters of an altogether different kind. At their command, the felines, wild animals that have been smuggled into hive primers to act as pets, attack animals, and status symbols for the most impressive gang queens. In the laboratories of the clan houses, the genes of felines cats have been combined and evolved with reptilian DNA to produce a bigger and more dangerous animal, the fear cats, or venom cat. Still possessed of that Xenos cat origin, but cold-blooded and more deadly than ever. I actually think one of my cats might be a felines based on their terrifying behaviour. And there is a final genetic experiment in Escher's arsenal of feline-like beasts, the Gyrinx. Though this is the most removed from the humble cat, what with its 6 eyes, 6 legs, its massive form and its barbed tail, it will still chase a pigeon if it sees one on the fence. Not cats per se, or at all really, the rogue trader Janus Drake identifies a race of feline-like warriors in his Liber Xenologist. According to his unreliable source, his Kroot hunter companion, these are a fearsome group of warriors called the Felinids, who have claws as long as your forearm. Alas, there is no miniature to support these particular warriors or any art from Games Workshop at all, so they probably deserve to be in this list even less than the burglar guy. And so we arrive at the last cat in space. Originally included as tokens in the original 1990 Space Hulk expansion sets, Deathwing and Genestealer, there are the Cyber Altered Task Unit. These cats received an updated token for Space Hulk 2nd edition, and then an adorable little miniature for the 3rd edition of the game in 2009. These little cat robots act as objectives and reconnaissance drones. So helpful are they that in 2022, a squad of Imperial Navy breachers even decided to bring one along when they entered the Space Hulk Gallo Dark. And that's it, we've got to pause there. I'm sure I've not covered every cat from Games Workshop history. I've not even touched on this amazing piece of art by John Blanche in 1989, Ignorant Armies, that features some kind of cat chaos warrior werewolf dude. Looks amazing, don't know what the story is. If I didn't cover your favourite example of a cat, please let me know in the comments below what I missed. And if I did cover it, let me know that too. For me, the Gyrinx is the best. I think it's enigmatic, mysterious, maybe a little bit sinister. You really don't know what it's planning, and that is just like every cat I know in real life. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery. Yes, I was wrong. You are the best example of a cat in Games Workshop history.